was Halloween night in the late 80s. I was 8 years old, and like every kid in the neighborhood, I was buzzing with excitement. My friends and I donned our costumes, clowns, monsters, and a rather convincing pirate, and hit the streets, eager to fill our plastic buckets with candy. The air was thick with the smell of autumn leaves, and laughter echoed all around us as we darted from house to house. But then, just as we reached a particularly dimly lit street, I noticed him. A man standing on the corner, watching us with an unsettling intensity. He wore a dark hoodie, the shadows pulling over his face like a veil, making it impossible to discern any features. I nudged my best friend, Timmy, who was dressed as a ghost. "Do you see that guy?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice low, not wanting to alarm the others. "Yeah, he's creepy," Timmy replied, his eyes wide. We turned to our friends, who were too busy vying over glow sticks and candy to notice the figure. As we continued down the street, I felt a growing unease. The man seemed to follow us, lingering just out of sight on the parallel sidewalk like a shadow chasing the light. I nudged Timmy again. "What if he's trying to take our candy? Or worse?" "Let's just get to the next house," he suggested, sounding uncertain, but I could see the worry creeping into his eyes as well. We hurriedly approached the next house, ringing the doorbell and hollering, "Trick or treat!" The homeowner, an elderly lady, tossed handfuls of chocolates and gummies into our buckets, but panic crept over me. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Stealing a glance back over my shoulder, my heart dropped. The man was now much closer, standing under a streetlight, his face still obscured. I could feel my legs wanting to bolt, to escape whatever threat loomed, but I didn't want to scare my friends. After gathering our loot, we decided to head back towards the more populated areas. We stuck together, my heart pounding, every step feeling heavier with the weight of fear. The laughter around us seemed distant now, almost a ghostly echo cut off by the heavy silence that surrounded our small group. Suddenly, the streetlights flickered, plunging us into darkness for a brief heartbeat. My breath hitched in my throat, and when the lights flickered back to life, the man was gone. I felt a fleeting relief, but it quickly twisted into confusion and dread. Where had he gone? "Maybe he's just left," Timmy said, trying to shake off the tension that hung over us. "Let's just keep moving," I urged, trying to remain calm. We turned down another street, but soon realized we were well away from the bustling homes. The air felt thicker, almost suffocating, and the Halloween decorations seemed to scowl down at us. And then, out of nowhere, we heard rustling from the bushes behind us. "Did you hear that?" Sarah, dressed as a witch, whispered, her voice quivering. As we turned, the bushes rustled again, and I caught a glimpse of something, a dark shape. It was too quick to be certain. Panic took hold, and we sprinted, running faster than I'd ever run in my young life. Adrenaline surged through me, breathing loudly in my ears as we desperately looked for any sign of safety. We darted through alleys and around corners, hearts racing. I kept glancing over my shoulder, and that was when I saw him. The man was there, following us. He wasn't just watching, he was chasing us now, and my pulse thundered in fear. "Run!" I shouted, but the words were barely above a gasp. We turned a corner onto a side street, the sound of our footsteps a frantic rhythm pounding against the asphalt, and just like that, the man seemed to vanish again, swallowed by the shadows as quickly as he had appeared. We stumbled to a stop, breathless, glancing at each other in fusion. Did we lose him? Timmy panted, his face pale. "I don't know," I murmured, feeling dread gnaw at my insides. But we had to get home, and together we started walking again, still on edge, but hoping we were finally safe. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a movement, catching a glimpse of the dark figure again, lurking down at the end of the street, just out of reach. We turned and dashed down the road, finally making it to the small cluster of houses where lights were on, and there were parents chatting on porches. It was only when we arrived back at our neighborhood, panting and shaken, that we realized we'd lost track of time. Our parents had been searching for us, calling our names into the night. Tears streamed down my face as I recounted the story, but all I heard were hushed tones and frantic whispers among the adults, concern etching their faces. The police were called, scouring the area, but the man was never found. They assured us it was probably just a coincidence, perhaps a harmless prankster, but I never believed that. Every Halloween after that, I couldn't help but look over my shoulder. The man, the dread, and that flicker of darkness would always remain etched into my memory, a chilling reminder of a night that had seemed so innocent at first. It was supposed to be a perfect day. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the dense woods that surrounded us. My best friend Sarah and I had decided to escape the routine of our daily lives for a little pumpkin carving trip. Armed with our tools, we set up our spot beneath a large oak tree, its leaves rustling gently in the soft breeze. As we began to carve our pumpkins, laughter filled the air, but something felt off. It started subtly. I caught a glimpse of movement among the trees while sketching out the design on my pumpkin. A flash of white. I brushed it off, convinced that my eyes were playing tricks on me. But as the afternoon wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. "Hey, did you see that?" I finally asked Sarah, trying to remain casual. "See what?" She looked up, curiosity etched on her face. "That figure, over there." I pointed vaguely toward the thicket, but by the time she turned to look, there was nothing but shadows. She laughed it off. "It's probably just a deer or something. Relax." Maybe she was right. We tried to focus on our pumpkins, but I couldn't ignore the prickling sensation at the back of my neck. I looked toward the trees again, and there it was, a figure. A man in a white expressionless mask, cloaked in shadows, peering at us from behind a tree. My heart raced, and I nudged Sarah, gesturing silently. "Who the hell is that?" she whispered, eyes wide. I couldn't speak. Fear had rendered me mute, but instinct kicked in and we called out, "Hey, what do you want?" Our voices echoed through the woods, the only response the soft rustle of leaves. He just stared, unmoving, his mask reflecting the sunlight eerily. The longer we looked, the more unsettling it became. Seconds felt like hours, and tension hung thick in the air. Just as we were about to dismiss it as some odd prank, he shifted and began to move closer, slowly navigating his way from tree to tree. "Get the things." "Now," I urged Sarah, adrenaline surging as I grabbed my pumpkin. We bolted, fear fueling our legs as we zigzagged through the woods towards the car, my heart pounding in my chest. The masked figure broke into a sprint behind us, the sound of twigs snapping underfoot echoing in our hurried flight. Every instinct screamed at us to keep moving. We burst out of the tree line, gasping for breath, my hands trembling as I fumbled for the keys. I barely managed to unlock the car before we dove inside, slamming the doors shut as if that thin sheet of metal could protect us from whatever had been stalking us. We sped away, my mind racing. "Should we call the cops?" Sarah asked, turning to me, fear lacing her words. I shook my head. What would we even say? That some guy in a mask was watching us carve pumpkins? It sounded ridiculous even to my ears. Maybe it was just a prank? Sarah suggested, her voice shaky. Probably, I replied, though the unease still curled in my stomach. Still, the shadows of the woods felt like they were closing in as we drove down the winding road, the golden daylight fading into an ominous twilight. After that day, the park became a place of nightmares. No pumpkin carving trips, no long walks in the woods, just the chilling memory of a white mask lurking behind the trees and the instinct to stay far, far away. I decided to go to a Halloween party with my friends, and we all thought it would be a blast to dress up as little mermaids. The evening started off on a great note, with laughter and fun as we admired each other's costumes and danced to the spooky tunes echoing through the party. The decorations were fantastic, featuring carved pumpkins, cobwebs, and even a fog machine that added to the eerie atmosphere. As the night went on, the party became more lively, and we enjoyed playing various games. We chatted with other guests, and I even remember taking plenty of photos to capture the night, although some shots were a bit blurry from all the excitement. After about 2 hours, things started to blur together. My memory isn't very clear after that point, but I remember stepping outside for some air, only to find myself in a car. I soon realized it was an Uber, though I had no recollection of calling one. The driver seemed rather quiet, maintaining his focus on the road. Meanwhile, I was in the back seat, feeling confused and a bit rowdy, but he didn't react to my antics. I caught him occasionally observing me through the rearview mirror, which made me feel uneasy despite my intoxicated state. Trusting my instincts, I stopped trying to engage him in conversation and quieted down, hoping to reassure myself. Strangely, he then initiated small talk, which only amplified my discomfort. I answered briefly, attempting to appear more sober than I was feeling. My anxiety rose, yet I focused on keeping the situation calm. When we arrived at my home, he politely asked if I needed assistance. I thanked him and declined, but as I opened the car door, I found myself on the ground. Almost immediately, he was at my side, helping me to my feet. I inquired about what had happened, to which he responded that I had simply fallen. Embarrassed, I apologized and thanked him again, insisting I could manage on my own. He watched from his car until I made it to my front door, which seemed considerate at the time. I chalked up my earlier misgivings to being excessively paranoid from drinking. Once inside, I settled in and, feeling exhausted, drifted off to sleep quickly. Hours later, a loud knock startled me awake. Still a bit groggy, I checked my Ring camera and saw the Uber driver standing at my door. My heart skipped a beat as I was sure I remembered him vividly from both reality and sporadic dreams I had during my sleep. I couldn't comprehend why he was back. Through the camera, I asked why he had returned. He insisted that I had left my keys with him, which was simply untrue. Puzzled, I checked my keychain and found all my keys present, confirming that he was mistaken or, worse, not being truthful. I told him politely but firmly that he must have the wrong person because I had all my keys. His demeanor shifted, growing insistent and commanding, demanding I open the door. Alarmed, I threatened to call the police, at which he began banging on the door, shouting obscenities. Terrified, I promptly called the authorities, giving them details, and later reported the incident to Uber. The police arrived, and I was grateful for their presence, yet still shaken by the encounter. When the police arrived, they spoke with him outside. He attempted to present himself as if everything was fine, trying to convince them it was a misunderstanding. To my disappointment, the officers gave him a warning, reminding him to avoid situations like this in the future. Although the outcome left me feeling unsettled, my primary concern was ensuring he would never return to my home or bother me again. I hoped this incident would be enough to deter him from further contact.